Frank said to Robert, "You're an idiot." The moment he said, "You're an idiot," and he's looking at you, what type of relevance is there? Is he really saying it to you, or is it just a contextual thing which you should completely ignore? It has no meaning. Again, does it depend, for instance, on how he says it? Let's say he says, hey, Frank said to Robert, and is looking right to you in your face and says, "You're an idiot." Says it right in your face, as if he's saying it to you. Should you be insulted then? Is it insulting at all? Should you just ignore it because you know he's saying it to someone? Does it has an existence in and of itself? What happens, I believe, from a cognitive or philosophical perspective here, is that that person makes some kind of a contextual bubble, which is Frank said to Robert, and then within that bubble, everything he would say in that bubble contextually should have no meaning to you, contextually or psychologically. However, in this discussion, I would claim that there are two aspects of cognition here. One is relative and one is absolute. From a relative perspective, yeah, there's a context. What he's saying, like let's say "you're an idiot," has no meaning because you understand that it's contextual and he's not saying that to you. However, there is a aspect of reality which is absolute, that everything that is being said or done has some kind of an absolute value. Meaning, even though he says, Robert said to, or Frank said to Robert, then the moment he's saying that to you, he's saying that to you. And for instance, we could take a different example. If, for instance, like in a film, let's say, or even in that same discussion, if he would like say that Frank slapped Robert, and he would then just show you how, with an action, show you how Robert slapped, or again, Frank slapped Robert. In that case, he gives you a slap. Does that slap also has no meaning? Or let's say he gives you even like a fist in the face and knocks you down to show you what Frank did to Robert. Again, it's just contextual. It just explains to you what Frank did to Robert. But in this case, you got a slap. You're knocked down on the floor, and when you're laying down on the floor, you should just think, oh, he just was exemplifying what happened. He didn't mean it to me. So, yeah, there is an element of intention, right? You could even hit someone with intention, and again, in the contextual relative meaning, something which is, let's say, I often give an example of someone who, and that would be a different discussion, but a tap and a hit could be the same thing, and the contextual and the interpretation of the act and the intention that lied behind it are actually something which change it from a tap to a hit, a friendly tap to a hit. However, in this case, we are really wanting to explore what is really and what is the threshold between giving, like saying something and how we should interpret it, depending on the context. So let's take a different example. Let's say a film in which two actors are participating. So usually people would think, yeah, it's a film, if they're acting, and one person is like, let's say saying, something to another person in the film. If they're actors, then it means nothing because it's a film. But then again, if the person is like injuring another person in a film, even if though it's a film, there's some kind of a validity to it which cannot be erased. Or in a porn film, if a guy makes if a guy is having sex with a actress, porn actress, and gets her pregnant, then it's something which cannot be ignored. It's not just a film. It's not just acting. So again, what's the threshold between let's go back to the question about Robert and Frank, or Frank and Robert. If someone goes to you and says, Frank said to Robert, "You are an idiot," so that "you are an idiot," should you take it personally or should you not? And if, for instance, we're thinking of Borat, of Sacha Baron Cohen, we see that you know, he insulted many people, even though he just his intention was to just incite various reactions in ignorant people, but he himself says some anti-Semite remarks or racist, that things that that actually insult people, which means that they have a face value. And we could finish this you know, discussion with an example from the Bible. Actually they discuss in the Kabbalah about Moses. Moses said to God, and he says that if God doesn't forgive the Jewish people, he could erase Moses from the book. And Moses and God, and in the Kabbalah it is told that even though he made it in a conditional way, he says, if you don't, because he said that God should erase him from a book, from the Bible, indeed his name does not appear in one of the books of the Bible, which means there is some validity to it, notwithstanding the conditionality of the context or the comment. So context is something which does affect, but there is some validity to the things that are being said. Thank you for listening.